Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese episode 389. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Mark Augustiniak.
What's up?
Matt Sellner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. I almost called you Matt Augustiniak, and I don't know what life is anymore.
That's my brother.
Yeah. Wait, what?
So he goes by his middle name Ryan, but his first name's Matthew.
I feel like I've known this about you in the decade we've known each other. That I was reflecting on that, I think, just yesterday. I was like, wow, I've known Mark for a very, very long time.
My apologies.
No, I'm grateful for it. I mean, even Matt, I mean, I've known you for almost
6 years.
7
No.
Ish? So it's life, man.
Six plus ish.
Yeah. iPhone 6 Plus-ish. That's what we're rocking over here. That should be the new naming convention. That's what I hope the new Nintendo Switch is that did not get announced during this week's Nintendo Direct. More on that later. Matt, how are you doing this fine Sunday morning?
Tired, but gotta. It's been a glorious week for me. I've come back home to something near and dear to my heart. 2021 has started off kind of good. We'll get more into that later. But it's been a good week. I got a snow day. That's one of the benefits of still having to report to work.
Yeah, did not get that luxury. And the fun thing is, I don't leave the house, but someone else does, so I'm still on the hook for cleaning off a car. But I don't have to go drive to an office.
Oh, that was the worst. I just went to use the little brush part in my little thing, swept it, nothing. Nothing came off it. I was like, oh. And 30 minutes later, I was finally getting to my car to go to work, and I was already 15 minutes late at that point.
Yeah, it was brutal. It's now I tried to shovel a little bit just to clear space in the backyard. Nope, there's just nothing at all. It's just ice. So every time I go outside now, I'm just like, well, let's see if I can slide from the back door to the car. That'd be kind of neat. Can't quite get it yet, but we're gonna keep trying to get it. I have an update in the world of garbage we talk about on this podcast besides video games, and the update is Snickers brownie. Speaking of said ice, the other night had to run out, and then it was a post-dinner, and post-dinner I had nothing to satisfy the sweet tooth. So I was like, well, I'm already out on these here roads. Why don't I slip into the Wawa and grab me something sweet? I see a Snickers with brownie, and I'm like, okay, hello there. Take it to the counter. Girl at the counter, have you tried this before? No, it's my first time. I'm very excited. I was just thinking about having brownies, but didn't have brownie mix. Didn't want to go to the store to buy brownie mix. But here I find myself in this Wawa, and you've got Snickers with brownie, so I'm quite excited. It's not that good. Oh. Thanks. It's fine. I mean, it's whatever, but it's just not that good. Okay, cool. Get back, take a bite. It's fine. It's not that good. She was not incorrect, but, she punctured my excitement balloon a little bit preemptively. It is fine. If you're out there and you see that, if you're listening to this as you pull into a Wawa and then you are standing in the candy aisle and you're like, hey, they got that Snickers with brownie. It's good, but it just tastes like a Snickers mostly. Not so much the brownie. But,
now, did that temper your expectations and lead to less disappointment, though? She may have did you a favor. Because if you were going with the highs of highs...
I feel like I had an idea of what it was going to taste like in my head, and then biting into it where it really just tasted like a Snickers. I feel like had I not even known, if I had just bought the thing, brought it home, bit into it, and it tasted like a Snickers, I would have been like, oh, weird, it just tastes like a Snickers. But then I don't know if I was trying to like it more to defy her. I like to defy people, so I don't know if it was that. I'm big on the CW theme, Dare to Defy, you know what I mean? That's me, that's my life, and that's what I like to do. So I don't know. I maybe, but it wasn't as bold of a choice as like a Snickers peanut butter, right? I don't know if you've had the Snickers peanut butter, but that dares to defy. I should say. Like that's a challenging flavor combination. Because you think it's a Snickers, but you have no idea.
I think I would want to do the opposite. If somebody came in and I was ringing them up, and let's just say the Snickers brownie was the best thing for this, but I would still like act like that cashier did. Like, have you had this before? And you'd be like, no, and I would just like raise my eyebrows, be like, oh, and leave it at that. And like so like you think it's awful, and then you're so hesitant to try it that when you do, you're just, oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah. Or I'm driving home like, did I miss something? Is there like a TikTok that tells everyone don't eat Snickers with brownie because it gives you mouth cancer or something? Like what am I missing out here? But no mouth cancer yet. I don't know. I do have an ulcer. Does that count? Maybe the Snickers brownie gave me a mouth ulcer. Maybe that's what happened.
Ooh, well, it's either that or a cavity.
So far so good there. I don't know. I can't tell. I can tell that Wednesday we got a surprise Nintendo Direct, which was legitimately caught off guard by. I did not expect that to happen this week. As you know, I'm pretty great at predicting when these things happen because I actively predict them almost every day for the first 2-3 months of the year. But I just kind of, whatever. I was like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I figured they got to speak at some point, right? Because we knew nothing about 2021. Before we kind of jump into some of our favorites and highlights, can I ask you guys really quickly, do you feel like we know more about 2021 for Nintendo or less?
We know it exists past March 31st now, which was a valid concern for a bit.
Yeah, fair.
Like, will Mario ever appear in another video game past March 31st? Well, we have an answer, so we're clear.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot about that golf game. I was going to say, no, they just moved him to the theme park. Mark, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, I feel we won't get a really, really good grasp until, like, maybe summer.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think that, yes, it's good to know that, like, there is stuff past. Because we knew, basically, Bravely Default 2 was this month, that Mario 3D World was this month. Monster Hunter Rise is, like, a big March game for them. And then they're filling in the gaps somewhere else. But in terms of first-party output, there was not a ton. And I honestly, I don't know, I was kind of in my head thinking this year was going to go a certain way. And the way that they closed this Direct really threw my expectations out for 2021. But looking through, like, do you guys have any, like, specific call-outs that you were, like, super stoked about, or anything that you were surprised, disappointed? I don't know. Hit me.
I think we knew a sports game was coming from Nintendo, but I really, like, the thing with Mario Golf 3DS, like, it's a great golfing game, but it's, like, missing, like, that Mario, like, kind of part of it. I'm really excited to see that new, like, speed mode, or I forget what they called it specifically, but the one where, like, it's more of a race, and it looks like there's, like, Mario Kart-esque shells and power-ups and things like that. I think that can make a really fun Mario Golf game, and I will be teeing off day one because of that.
Listen to you writing a little headline there. Did you write the press release for this, or what?
I sure didn't.
Yeah, so Mario Golf, I really wanted a new sports game. I missed the boat on tennis, and I don't know why, but I think maybe it just came out at a time where I didn't really need a sports game, and then I think your experience with it and chasing the meta and some of the stuff around it, where I think the single player also, like the fact that it was such a short adventure, I was like, I'll wait. And I kept waiting long enough to where I didn't care. And I figured we'd be getting a different sports game soon enough anyway. So this golf was exciting. And I think, I'm looking forward to that. I like that you can do motion control if you want to, because I think that stuff's fun when you want to do it. But I also, like the options that are available. And the power-ups on the field, that's a neat twist that I don't think we've really seen in Mario in a big way. Like Mario Golf before, like I think maybe you could have done like a super mushroom or something to get a big. Maybe I'm completely forgetting, but
it's not in a 3DS one. I didn't never really came across that.
No. Yeah, this is exciting. Was that the highlight for you this time? Mario Golf Super Rush?
I mean, the end of it. I mean, I'm sure we'll get there in a second, but the end of it is probably my biggest hype train right now. But yeah, the golf game is a nice surprise. It's something that's gonna make me pick up my Switch in summer.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Mark, did you have a highlight, low light? No.
I mean, one of my highlights is also like an obvious, but ones that were a good surprise. I like the Famicom mystery, whatever.
Yeah, the Detective Club.
Yeah, that was cool. It's always good to see No More Heroes 3 stuff, even though I feel like I don't need to see any more of that.
Yeah,
like
I'm
already sold. Yeah. But so like those two and that was it Neon White?
Yeah, so Neon White, I've come back to a bunch this week because we'll talk later on, but I've been playing a lot of card-based video games, and seeing Neon White was exciting because I've literally spent the week playing mostly card-based games. But I realized later that is from, Benjamin Esposito, I believe is the name. I got to look it up. But Donut County.
Yeah.
So
big shift.
Yeah, and really exciting. I think it looks weird. The character designs are cool looking. Like, I don't know. I'm really into that, what they're doing with that. That one, so the weird thing about that is that it's scheduled for winter 2021, but I don't know if that means like in the next month or December. Like, usually winter 2021 would mean to me like right now, somewhere between January and March, but I don't know.
I mean, it looks pretty far along in my opinion. But...
Yeah, I think so. And Donut County was long enough ago that it would make sense, but the Famicom Detective Club stuff, those were announced for Japan a while back. I did not expect them to ever come this way. And for the fact that they did it and they're still calling them Famicom Detective Club is super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you going to grab those? I already went on the eShop and just boop, pre-ordered them both, $35 a piece. I was like, let's do this.
I think one gives you a discount for the other. If you...
I should recheck what I've...
so
maybe, I don't know how they...
You might have saved $5 or something from that, but...
They didn't charge me yet, so maybe like when they go to do that, they'll...
Do they happen at the same time, or are they sequels? Like, is there a timeline with these?
I don't know. I remember I want to say they were separate releases originally on the disc system.
I don't even know if they have the same characters either.
Yeah, not sure. I do like that. Like this one lets you swap between the new and the original 8-bit soundtrack if you want to. But otherwise, everything else, graphics, music, and sound effects have all been updated to this modern style. Outside of those, like the thing that I kind of walked away with was we saw a lot of Miis stuff. We saw, obviously in Mario Golf Super Rush, there were the single-player campaign stuff where you play as a Mii. But they're straight bringing the 3DS game Miitopia over to Switch. And something I kind of thought about late last year at some point, realizing I was doing what I do every couple months where I read those financial breakdowns from Nintendo and look at what they've sold and look at the demographics in which they've sold to and those sorts of things. And just thinking about 2020 as a big lift for the Switch and who's playing Switch now and who's talking about Switch now, I was like, man, I don't think we've had something like this quite since the Wii. And I was thinking, I don't know if, I can't remember now. It's only been a month, but I already forgot what our yearly predictions were. But I don't remember if I actually predicted this legit or if I had just thought about it. But I feel like I thought at least at some point we're going to get a return to like a Wii Sports style title because of how prevalent Switch stuff is with families and homes, and there's that kind of like Switch is now able to kick back to the wide net, where I think when it launched, it was very much like, hi, are you 18 to 34? Do you like, it was like very much like, let's go after this target group. And not unlike the Wii, they got us, and then it branched out to families, etc. Anyway, all that's to say, like, I'm not surprised to see the Miis come back, but I'm also like intrigued at like, why? What are we doing? I also, looking back at a couple of weeks ago when we had that story about the Breath of the Wild character creators, where you saw they're based on Miis. Mm-hmm. I thought about the changes they did to the Miitopia character creator with Miis, like the options you have now with makeup and design and hairstyles and stuff. And I'm like, what part of that tech goes somewhere else? Does that mean that the Breath of the Wild 2 NPCs are also modified? It's like, did this happen because they looked at the catalog of games and said, what can we sell again? Or did this happen because they looked at different tools and things they had, right? Like the back-end Mii creation tool that's then used for Breath of the Wild, is it also used for the background characters in the Stadium of Arms? Like, that's the stuff I'm thinking about, because Nintendo likes to like create something and reuse it across the board, and that's where my brain starts swirling, and I'm like, what else are we getting? What other stuff is coming out of this? And like, how is this development environment shifting because of the changes they're making like that? Like, obviously, I think something like the Famicom Detective Club, honestly, going into this, Katie asked me, she's like, oh, is this the Mother 3 thing? Is that what you think is going to happen? And I was like, honestly, yeah. Not because I always say Mother 3 is going to happen, but it made a lot of sense. Like, this is the 15th anniversary of that game. And in a work from home, like, I think some places, some Nintendo studios are maybe back in an office, kind of, in small bits. Not fully, though, I don't think. Like, I think, like, Sakurai's team is a different whatever, but I thought about that, and I'm like, the 30th anniversary Fire Emblem thing that came out, I'm not saying it's an easy thing to throw together, but comparatively, you've got an existing game, you've got teams that are working remotely, like that might be an easier small project to take while working from home. So I did think, in a way, like, Mother 3 would not be that big of a lift to do comparatively to other things that they, you know what I mean? Like full development on a brand new game from scratch. But I don't know, man. My brain was running around those things, and seeing the Famicom Detective Club stuff, I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't that difficult. Like, obviously you have to localize it, and there's work that goes into that, but in terms of the core game stuff, like, that's all there. And how much of last year's development shift affected what we're starting to see? And like, is that why Miitopia came? Did Miitopia come because they worked on a new Mii tool? I don't know. At this point, I'm just pontificating. Sorry. But like, that's, yeah.
I'd say the funny thing with Miitopia, when I noticed the hair, first thing I thought of was Miitomo, because that actually incorporated wigs first. I don't know about makeup, though. So I'm wondering how much of that is carrying over. Is this a bigger scheme to bring Miitomo back? Who knows? One can dream.
Would you play Miitomo on your Switch?
Yes. Why is that a question?
No, I agree. I feel like it'd be a neat little hub thing to build on there. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm always ever curious the motivation, because you do hear that stuff later on when they slowly talk in hindsight, like, oh, well, we had created these tools to do X, Y, or Z. Like the Splatoon, the fact that like Splatoon exists is because they were testing around things to maybe do in a Mario game, right? Or it just happened to slowly evolve to that point. But like, where else have all of these ideas come from? I don't know.
I think you guys are overthinking Miis way too much.
I don't know, man.
I'm dreaming.
That's where it is.
That's it. I know.
I want to see where else they go with these things, or what the long-term goal is. There's got to be a business plan in mind. Like there was a business plan in mind to announce The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. Which I think... So I've watched the Direct 3 times now. I watched the Japanese version to see what the heck was going on over there. Not a ton of changes, but Matt, there was a cool baseball game they're getting that looked really fun and weird. And like, you should look at that. But yeah, seeing the Aonuma like That's my favorite part of the direct, is him being like, hey, you're probably seeing me and thinking, yay, Breath of the Wild sequel. But sorry, not today. Instead, let me remind you that all the stuff you liked about that actually started because this game existed. What he didn't say is that harsh reactions to how Skyward Sword shoehorned you into a single lane of whatever is what forced Breath of the Wild to be created. But I loved that moment. But I also like that Skyward Sword's getting another opportunity. I think going into this, I mean, we put together a little bingo card for ourselves just for fun, and we did not. We I think collectively thought Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were easy ones because they're already on Wii U, so just hit the save as button and pop it over. But this, I'm kind of glad. Like, to an extent, I just played Wind Waker last year on Wii U, and I could easily just grab Twilight Princess on Wii U as well. And I think now that they've announced Skyward, I kind of want to just go play Twilight Princess. But seeing this get another chance, I'm excited about, because I did not enjoy my time with that game on Wii. Which, like, I remember our friend Akko saying, this is the first time I've not collected all heart pieces. Which, like, that was... I know that sounds silly, but, like, I remember at the time that being like, oh... Because, like, that was Akko's thing. It was like, a new Zelda game's out, I'm going to do everything until I have a 100% complete file, and then I will turn the game off and never touch it. Right? But, like, it was always... He was like, no, dude, I had to stop. It just wasn't... But the fact that they're hopefully modernizing a lot of the stuff that I think was restrictive in terms of progression and gameplay, and that whole, like, the speaking of the Wii era, like, that tacked on, are you sure you still want to keep playing? Do you want to take a break? Hey, it's been a while since you've played, or it's been 4 minutes since you've played. Let me tell you everything that happened since the last time you touched the controller and stop you from picking up and starting. Like, hopefully a lot of that stuff is addressed. But Mark, as the Zelda man, Mr. Zelda, where do you sit on this? I kind of know where we were during the direct, but since the time we watched it, where are you falling on this guy?
I'm all right with it. Like, I think it needed to happen. It kind of makes sense in that regard. The next one to get this treatment. It's cool that they did add button controls, and now that the sword would be aligned to the right stick instead of flicking things around. I'm curious to try that out. I wonder how responsive and intuitive that feels versus just swinging a Joy-Con around. I didn't really hate Skyward Sword when it first came out. There were some good things about it that I enjoyed. Yeah, like the controls were a little alienating at first. I think that was the main reason why I even bought a Wii, to be honest. Other than Smash, like I got the collectors with like the gold Wiimote and soundtrack and whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, getting used to the swordplay was, like, it takes time. It is definitely weird at first. Having a stamina meter was definitely interesting at the time. It was nice to have, like, Link sprint for the first time. It definitely is one of my favorite versions of Zelda as a character. She feels more purposeful in this one. Like, she's not just a princess you just meet when you're growing up. Like, she was, like, your friend from like the beginning. She's like a childhood friend, so like there's a deeper connection there, and it's cool. The biggest gripe I think is definitely the lack of worlds or like levels, because you retread a lot of the same ground between like 3 areas for the most part, and then there's like this mini boss segment you kind of have to do over and over that just slowly adds a little more to it each time you do it.
Is that the stuff with what's his face?
It's like before like it becomes like, I guess, like a different form, or it's that big two-legged like creature that you have to like hit in the head with the sword or whatever. Like it goes up a spiral and you have to keep like attacking its toes, and then you stab him in the head.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you had to keep doing that, and I was like, all right, this is it could be a little much if you're, I guess, playing a lot in one sitting. So like Fee was just another like thing adding on where, like you said, it really breaks the flow of the game and whatever. But overall, despite that, I think I do like it for what it is.
Yeah, I think that I like that it was going back to the origins and kind of starting off the timeline, and showing you kind of how things came to be.
Yeah, I think this was the first game where the timeline was now official and like contextualized.
Yes. This was far, or maybe not far, but this was around the time that like Iwata had said, "I have a file on my desktop that includes the Zelda timeline, but you'll never know." This was after that point, and when they had finally let everyone know, like, kind of what it is, and this is the first in the story. So,
yeah. I mean, it was never like my like favorite, but I definitely have respect for it.
I do too. It's just a lot of those things that like made it difficult to. I also every time I've tried to play this game, it has always been after something. Like I finished Wind Waker, and I was like, all right, I want more. I got Skyward Sword. Let me jump back in, and then I was like, "Oh, this is not what I want right now."
Yeah, I think Skyward just came at a bad time. Especially, and then like what we were expecting the next Zelda to be versus what it turned out to be. You know, this is around a time where Wind Waker had a divisive community because of its graphical style. Like people didn't like the cell shading cartoon. They wanted more like Twilight Princess, darker, more realistic. And Skyward Sword kind of became like that in between. But it still wasn't quite the edginess that everybody wanted, I guess. And then Breath of the Wild happened way after that point. We're like, okay, we can get used to this. We're fine with it. It's okay. So I think now I can go back with a little more open mind, hopefully. And I don't know.
Remember correctly, wasn't it a tiny bit more expensive as well because it came with a controller that had the Wii Motion Plus stuff built inside of it?
Ooh.
I think that was that the only way that game was sold was with the Wii remote? Because I thought that was a separate thing. I think
that was a collector's edition version.
And then the Wii U version, I think, was like way cheaper too. Virtual Console, I think it was like $20.
Yeah, $20 on virtual. All the Wii stuff is just a flat $20.
Now people are like 60. Ugh, ridiculous. And it's like,
but
I get it.
People also complain about anything. There's a lot of work that went into this game, and this seems like way more than just save at. Like when you're running it on Wii U, you are literally just you're running it through the built-in. You know what I mean? The built-in backwards compatibility. You're just downloading a file and letting the Wii U run the executable. This is porting it to a new system, adding new control schemes. Like there's work that went into this game. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like seeing that it costs $60 and knowing I already have it on my Wii U makes me think. Do the same thing about 3D World that we talked about last week. Like, do I need it? Because I already have it. Like, I know there's new stuff, but like, do I need to? Can I be okay with spending $60 when I already have it? Is kind of where I'm at with this. But I'm excited. I think honestly I'm gonna end up spending $60 on Twilight Princess. But my last question with Zelda, and we're gonna wrap up Nintendo Direct stuff here in a moment. But the Aonuma said like, hey, we're not talking about that other game, but you know we'll have more to share later this year. Do you think that means E3 and then let's blow it out and launch this game in the fall, or do you think we're not getting that Zelda game this fall, this holiday?
I'm thinking E3 if they choose to do something around that time, because I do not know what else you're going to show off other than I really don't know what else you're going to show off.
You always got that.
True.
But, I mean,
Matt, what's the holiday game if not Zelda?
No, I think it's Zelda, and I think you're right. I think you're going to get a little bit more reveal at E3 or around whatever E3 is this year.
At least the title.
June. I'll just go to say June. And I think it's going to release in the holiday, and you're going to get another one of those directs where like a chunk of it, like a 20-minute chunk, is deep diving that game, and then it comes out holiday. And that's like your typical October direct as well. That will fall perfectly right there for like an early November release.
Did learning that Splatoon 3 is releasing in 2022 change your expectations about the sequel to the Breath of the Wild?
No.
No,
I think that game's holiday.
It does give me some suspicion that like maybe they're just waiting to launch it with a newer Switch, and they're probably adding some gimmick last minute to go with that, and maybe that's why it's taken so long.
The one thing about Splatoon 3 that made me at least feel better about, because I thought that as soon as we saw the 2022 on Splatoon 3, I was like, I thought that was a shoo-in for summer. So what the heck are they doing? Like, what else? But a lot of the same names that are on Splatoon also work on Animal Crossing. So I do wonder how much of... and also, Splatoon 3, let's just say, like, the tease at the beginning of, like, a big, weird adventure happening that then leads the character to Inkopolis seems like they might be doing something far bigger with the single-player campaign this time around. So the time that it... You know what I mean? Because the original core Splatoon 2 was pretty short, and then they added that Octo expansion, which had some really cool challenging platform levels and stuff. But so it could just be this is a combination of people working on Animal Crossing and then building a bigger game. I don't know. Well,
didn't we just talk about, it was like last week or 2 weeks ago, about how Nintendo is revamping some of their online infrastructure stuff? Like, I wonder if they were trying to figure that out first and then release, since this is a major online game. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Because I mean, from the initial like little camera things, like the game doesn't look much different. Hell, even like the 4 people entering into like the Splatoon like map, that animation almost seems the same, except I noticed a couple new weapons like the bow and stuff. But like, I don't know how much of a big change this is going to be besides a major single player campaign on the multiplayer front. Because I think Splatoon 2, at least most of those modes work well. Like, I like the league thing. I think that was a really clever idea. The solo stuff, the solo ranked stuff is fine. The only thing that bothered me was like the regular like painting stuff. You just couldn't match. Like, you couldn't. It was so hard to get into a lobby with your friends, and so just like difficult that like they just need to fix that. Like, just let us lobby up. Go and play the regular mode. I'm not talking about the rank stuff. I don't even need that. I just want to be able to play with you. Just ink the map.
It was so weird too. Like, Salmon Run, you could do that. You could party up with your friends, no problem. Yeah. But it's like, why couldn't this just? It's in the same game.
Yeah. I played the other day after this announcement, and the funny thing about Splatoon 2 is like connectivity wise, like I've seen some weird stuff with Smash trying to play online over Wi-Fi, but over Wi-Fi I've never had a problem with Splatoon 2. There is, I would say, when I was really heavy into Splatoon 2 multiplayer, I would get the like every like 10 games I would just get a weird like disconnect error, just completely whatever. But in terms of like lag or slowdown, like everything always felt and ran clean. But even playing the other night, like there's a lot of like little tiny quality of life things where like if I want to change my loadout, I need to back out of the queue. I can't do that. Like those little tiny things I hope are addressed in Splatoon 3. But otherwise, you know. 2 more things about the Direct, and we got to move on. Pyra Mithra, who's stoked?
I think at first I was like, okay. I mean, it's kind of hard to follow after Sephiroth. But I guess I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Yeah. Especially, this was the Xenoblade 2 folks were some of the most requested characters. And I remember Sakurai saying that, you know, they'd already made the cutoff for DLC round 1 and couldn't get them in. So it's cool they're coming in round 2. And we still have 3 more characters to go. So that's is it 3 or 2?
3. This one is 6 fighters.
It was Min Min, Steve, Sephiroth.
Oh, wait. Pyra. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 2 more then.
So 2, okay.
Potentially.
Yeah. So this will be March, and then we'll probably get one in summerish, and then one in the fall to close it out. You think we get a Fighters Pass 3?
There's a good chance. Sakurai said he'll keep doing them for as long as he can.
That's great. I can't wait to see what this select screen is in the end. My last question, and we got to close Nintendo Direct. What would the E3 display have been? Had there been a physical E3 this year, and had Nintendo been able to go to it, what do you think would have been on display based on what we saw in this Direct?
They would have remastered the same set they used when they announced Skyward Sword.
Just Skyward Sword setups everywhere.
I like that. What
The
about a Mario
incentive would
Golf
be to
golf
get those
course?
Joy-Cons.
What about them?
Ooh, that would've been cool.
Uh, Mario Golf? Oh man, if that was set up like Putt-Putt,
Right?
down.
Right.
So down.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm very curious about Nintendo this year. They've got. There's a lot of potential. A lot of anniversaries that did not get mentioned. Actually, 0 anniversaries got mentioned except for Mario 35 getting stuff added to New Horizon, which I'm very. I don't know. Speaking of Mario, Mark, you've played some more Super Mario 3D World. Matt, have you played any more of Mario 3D World?
A little bit more. Oops, sorry, I cut off. I think I played a little bit more. I can't remember if it was last week or not. It was over the weekend, so I'm all messed up because of the way we recorded.
Yeah.
I think I'm through like 3.5-ish worlds. I haven't picked it up for a whole week here, but I still plan to finish it.
Mark, did you wrap up Bowser's Fury?
Yes, I did.
How do you like? How did that all like? I mean,
It's weird. I don't know. Like, it feels complete, but at the same time, it feels a little undercooked in a way. So, as you're getting cat shines, once you are approaching 50, I think once you get around to like 48, there's 100 total. But once you get around like 48 or something, the way Bowser appears, because it's usually just like on like a timer, he'll appear, and then you'll either have to like wait him out or get a shine to get rid of him, or he turn into the giant cat Mario and fight him. But the sky slowly changes. It's not black anymore. It becomes like orange and like red. Like it's like an orangish red flare in the whole sky. And yeah, when you're around 48 shines, he is relentless. He does not go away. And getting a shine does not get rid of him. So you have to be like Cat
just
Mario. Like
constantly on the move.
you have to fight him. And then after you fight him, it turns into another boss fight. Where he's normal. He's still giant, but he's normal looking and his eyes are glowy. He has all the Giga Bells in like a crystal ball in front of him, and you're just on Plessy, just surfing around like Sonic Adventure style, fighting chaos. You have to like avoid all these obstacles, and then once he's standing there, because he's like shooting like a beam of fire at you, he's throwing all these spikes at you and everything. You gotta dodge all that, and sometimes he's standing there at a ramp. You jump off the ramp, you run into the crystal ball. The crystal ball runs into him. You have to do that like 5 times, and then it's really ridiculous ending or quote ending with it where your finishing move is grabbing all 3 of those bells, and Plessy is also a part of this transformation. Like all noise cuts out. It's just like this choir comes out of nowhere, and you just see the belly of Plessy coming down, body slamming Bowser to like this like heavenly tone. Just it's just like
Is it Super Saiyan Plessy at that point too?
It's like Super Saiyan Cat Plessy. Like it has ears and fur and everything. It's just this goofy smile doing a body slam. And then, like, Bowser turns back to normal and, you know, is, like, trying to yell at you all cartoony. Bowser Jr. holding him back. And then Bowser Jr. will come and, like, looks like he's about to thank you. And then he's all, like, acting like his dad, barking at you and everything, and goes away. And then you're like, oh. And then credits roll. And then you can go back. So I was like, I'm obviously going back because I only finished 2 out of the 3 places here. Like, I did the normal area, then I did the ice area. I didn't get to do the volcano, like, fire area yet. So I went back and did all that. Now you have an option to warp. You can fast travel between the areas now, like all the different islands. So that's cool. And then they added some, like, bonus missions on top where you can find, like, Captain Toad and like, that squad because they're, like, missing everywhere. And then so you're doing that. I'm like, all right, now I'm approaching around 70, like, 75 plus cat shines, and it's happening again. I had to do like the Orange Sky's back, Bowser's back,
wow.
Relentless. You have to do this all over again, and you have to fight that final form again. I'm like, all right, fine. Went through that, credits roll, go back in. I think I have like maybe 15 shines left, or like something like that. So now I finally do everything. I got all 100. You do that fight again, but now this time, Bowser's like fire hair is all like purplish white.
Oh.
So I guess it's like the final, like whatever. Yeah. I mean, his attacks don't change or anything. He just looks different. And then you fight, this Sonic Adventure style fight again. That's not different at all. Same ending and everything. Oh. Except now, each time when the credits rolled, there was like a painting that was covered in like black ink or whatever, because you couldn't see what he painted, so you got all 100 shines. And it was like this, that Bowser Jr. was painting. And it's a self-portrait of him with you, like being pals. But now he looks different. Like, I don't remember this Bowser Jr. looking like this. So now when you start post-game, that Super Saiyan cat form, that is now, that skin took over the Cat Mario regular skin. Okay. So you'll be normal size, but still look like Super Saiyan.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Bowser Jr. is now cat form.
Okay.
So now he has ears and whiskers and just looks different. That's it. That's the only difference. Well, other than Bowser doesn't come back anymore in post game. In that, but
what's left to do post game?
Nothing. Just you can just run around and just scale those worlds and those little islands again if you want, but there's really not much there after that. Yeah. So it's not worth really completing, I guess. So yeah, doing a boss fight 3 times was a little seeing the credits roll and just like I don't know.
That's a little like I would.
I'm glad it's as short
as 100.
Yeah, like I'm glad it's short as it is, but I don't think I need to go through that 3 times. Yeah, 2 maybe, but 3 just like all right, kind of done with it. And then I did go into the regular 3D world, and I got further in that. I think I finished the first 2 worlds completely, and now I think I'm on the 3rd world, which is all like the ice stuff. I didn't start it yet, but that's where I'm at.
I'm curious to see what they do with Mario next, because I think Odyssey went in a direction. The further I get from Odyssey, the more I don't really want to do the Cappy thing again, or...
Funny you say that, because as I was, like, jumping off walls, it's just regular Mario, or it's, like, not Cat Mario, because I was so used to just climbing everything, and it's like, oh, this is so good. I kind of miss throwing my hat and jumping on it as an extra piece to get across somewhere.
Oh, interesting.
Like, every time I jumped off a wall, that's what I would do in Odyssey. Like, jump off a wall, boom, boom. And, like, I guess I was just still, part of me had that muscle memory. I was like, I just want to, just come on, just jump off that. But,
yeah. You think we'll see another Mario game this year? Or do you think they kind of let Mario take the backseat while we move into, hopefully, Zelda and Metroid stuff?
I don't know about a main Mario game this year.
Yeah. Not a main one.
Oh, you know
I think there's been enough Mario. I think we've done some Mario.
Well, he dies on the 31st. It makes more sense to
do one next year with the movie anyway, right?
Probably.
I completely forgot Boomerang Mario. I wonder if you can do that Cappy trick. Jump off the boomerang as it comes back to you. I think
you'll have to check. You gotta
have to check.
We checked, kind of. The Japanese fighting game publishers Round Table number 2. Sorry, I was thinking about Tony Roller again. Round Table number 2. We talked last week that was going to happen midnight our time, and it did. And we got a couple of announcements out of it. We'll highlight really quickly. Tekken 7 is bringing a character as character pack or DLC pack 18. All we really know is that it is a female fighter from Poland. So congratulations, Mark. You finally made it into Tekken 7.
Yeah, she speaks pierogi.
That'll be out spring. Fighting EX Layer Another Dash has been announced for Switch. It's a game separate from Fighting EX Layer. This uses backstop interrupt netcode that's based on delay netcode. However, developer Arica hopes to replace that netcode with what they're calling the best of both games netcode, which is currently in testing and is based on rollback netcode. Samurai Showdown DLC is adding Cham Cham on March 16th, and they've teased a Guilty Gear character who will join the roster. Speaking of which, Guilty Gear Strive has confirmed its 15th and final playable character, Aino, a hard rock witch with a wild offense using her hover dash. And finally, the King of Fighters 15 showed a new trailer for Chizuru Kagura, joining previously announced Kyo Kusanagi and Iori Yagami to make up the game's second fully revealed team, Team Sacred Treasures. So some fun stuff out of that Japanese fighting game publishers roundtable. BlizzCon line 2021 announced the Blizzard Arcade Collection, which was announced and released same day for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. This arcade collection includes The Lost Vikings, Rock and Roll Racing, and Blackthorn. Pricing is where it gets a little strange. You can buy it on its own for $20, $19.99. You can get it on console as part of the commemorative collection for $29.99, or on PC you can buy the Celebration Collection for $59.99, a bundle of in-game items for other Blizzard games, which also includes the Blizzard Arcade Collection. It's a lot of different ways to buy it, but I guess if you're intrigued by those things, you can seek them out and buy them in one way or another. There has been some Overwatch 2 stuff since the initial launch day of that, but none of it seemed noteworthy, and that game does not seem like it's out. I think we know from the investor reporting that game is not out in 2021. Just like Diablo 4, which is not out this year, but we saw the reveal of a new character class, the Rogue, which the Rogue will specialize in both ranged and close combat features. Matt, you saw a little bit more about the Rogue and what the Rogue is capable of. What are we working with here in the Rogue class?
Yeah, I just pretty much saw like from the opening ceremony stuff, but they were just excited just to put a new class out there because it's a big part of Diablo. And they were saying with the Rogue, you kind of mentioned it about like both like ranged and close, but they've made it. They wanted a character tree, and they kind of emphasized this when they were talking about showing gameplay of like be kind of letting you kind of play them as they want with a combination of like short and close or short and long distance stuff. Honestly, it reminds me that a lot of it is like quick dashing and quick strikes and getting out of things. So I think like agility is going to be a big part of that build. She looked interesting. She reminded me of the hero Pangolier, I think, from Dota 2. He has it's very quick run around, hitting people with a sword, getting out of fights. She looked interesting. I like the cinematic for her. She kept just putting ears down in front of the priest, and then he had a whole collection of ears. It's like Mark Cerny's Heaven.
She collects ears as part of the, yes.
Yeah, then they said that they mentioned the amount of ears in the game, and they said, of course, that's going to have something to do with gameplay for her. So, Mark Cerny's dream.
Yes, come to life. And speaking of come to life, Diablo 2 Resurrected was announced, which I believe in an interview with Polygon, Rod Ferguson called gaming's worst kept secret. Which I don't know if definitively we can say that, but for now, this is definitely something we've known about, but it's nice to have confirmation. Diablo 2 Resurrected coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Out this year, 2021, with cross-progression across all platforms. There's a toggle button that lets you swap between old and new graphics. And confirmation that they're keeping it the original game. They wanted to make sure they were adding quality of life things where it made sense to, but not removing the core DNA of the game. So stuff like adding a map, they're not going to do, but stuff like auto gold pickup, they have added. But anything they've added that is different from the original version is a switch you can turn off in settings. So auto gold pickup is there because they didn't feel like that necessarily changed anything inherent to the core of the game. But for purists, you can swap that stuff off. Where do you fall on Diablo 2 Resurrected? I'm very conflicted about this one.
I mean, I think it's cool. It's coming. I've never been the big Diablo guy. Maybe this is when I pick it up just to see what all the hype was about. At least 2. I mean, I can't go back to 1, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's a good way to get that old game up to like newer PCs. I think that's the challenging part right now is playing Diablo 2 just like on current stuff. So yeah, I think it's good in that regard. Whether it should be $60 or whatever it ends up being, that's another thing. But yeah.
Are you buying day one, Mark?
Day one, I'm not sure yet. I do like it. I think it is funny that you can play the first one on GOG.
Yeah.
And I think they added like some like user mod to it to make it a little more I don't know, like I guess they added some quality of life improvements to it somewhere, but
yeah.
2 was I think the one I played the most, even though I never beat it, and I beat 3 eventually. But 2, man, 2 had when I got that battle chest when they first announced that, and I tried to druid, cause like you could be a werewolf and a werebear, but like nothing beat he has this one like volcanic attack where the more you put points into it, the more cracks in the ground will spread, and that's all like fire shooting out. And that just kills everything in front of you. Like, you don't have to really do anything else but that the entire time. So I just cheesed my whole way through so many maps because of that. And I don't know. I think it'll be cool to revisit. It's been a while. I missed that one. And I just love like that like stop motion-y look to it.
Yeah. I never played 2. I missed out on that whole thing, and I kept like almost because you could buy that at retail. Like you could walk into any like big box store and just see the battle chest sitting on the shelf. I mean, I don't know. I haven't really looked for it recently, but I feel like you might still be able to, depending on the store. And yeah, I missed it. So I'm like, I kind of want to, but I also don't know if I want to dump. Like, I don't know. I feel like with Diablo 3, I got into it, and then like you can really find yourself getting lost in it in a way that's like, you know what I mean? Like it can overtake. So I don't know where I want to go with it, but I'm intrigued.
2 definitely has a different essence or vibe to it compared to.
And this one seems
3.
like darker and cooler, so that's where I'm like,
yeah,
I should probably play this. Because I have been playing the darkest and coolest of games lately, such as Batman for the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is not my first time playing Batman for NES. But so there's an episode. A couple things happened this week that led me to playing this. There's an episode of Retronauts that came out last Monday, I believe, or maybe 2 Mondays ago, where they talked all about the year 1991 in video game history. It's a fun listen, even if some of the panelists dunked on some Sega stuff. But thankfully, Jeremy Parrish stepped in to defend Sega's honor. But at one point, someone had talked about how Sunsoft developed a game called Batman Return of the Joker. And it is a sequel to the 1989 Tim Burton movie in video game form. And simultaneously, DC Comics announced Superman 78 and Batman 89, 2 6-issue digital first series that are coming out this July. And Batman 89 is literally picking up where Batman Returns left off in that whatever, but in comic book form. They're going to bring back Selena Kyle. They're going to see the full transformation of Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. They're going to introduce a new Robin. They're going to do some cool stuff with the comic. And I just started thinking about that idea of like stories that got continued in other media. You know what I mean? Like we see it a lot where like things will get a comic book adaptation and then it'll kind of go. Like Injustice did that a lot where the game started as Injustice. They did a comic book tie-in. And now, I don't know if you guys know this, those Injustice comic books are like historically like #1 sellers on the non-stop. There's an Injustice 1, 2 year. They have like year 1 and 2 of each game, and now they have an Injustice 0 that's a prequel to. It's a whole thing.
Did not know that.
All that led me on the Mister, which I haven't talked about the Mister on air, and I won't really go into now because we could do that forever. But playing on the Mister, I jumped in playing Batman for NES, and there's something really cool about playing an old game like that now. I think the stuff we just talked about with quality of life improvements that games can have over time, that's stuff you don't have in a game like Batman for NES, where when I turn it off, I am back at the beginning. So I will sit down and I'll play through and I'll get through like level 3. And each time I've played it this week, I've gotten a little bit further. But I really now, for the first time, started to understand Batman has a really good wall jump in this game, where you can like jump. You kind of like jump onto not unlike Samus in some of the 2D Metroid games, but the way that he can move, like you can do some cool movement stuff in there and platforming. And it feels really accomplishing. You feel accomplished when you pull off a good platforming section. He's got 3 sub-weapons that you can swap between, and you have like a shared ammo pool for all of them. And you have my favorite thing. It's definitely in the first 2 levels, but there's these Todd Howard. I just keep calling them Todd Howards when they run up to you. I'll have to send you guys a picture of it. But it's this guy, this enemy that just, his thing is to just charge across the screen and run through you. He doesn't shoot you. He just runs across the screen, but it just looks like little Todd Howard with sunglasses. And every time I see it, the gameplay though, like when you duck down, you just like start punching, and as you hit them, you can kind of take them out as they run through you. But I really jumped into this because I wanted to. I've been like kind of living in the early like Batman. Like I went back and started watching Batman '89. I'm getting really excited for this Flashpoint movie where they're going to bring Keaton back as Batman, obviously, because like he's my Batman. And I don't know. So something in there, I'm like, yeah, I need to revisit this. And I'm excited to get to the Return of the Joker stuff and see what they actually did in terms of story and sequence. I think it's a weird thing that we don't see it too often anymore, but it's fun. And the game's pretty good. Like that's another thing too, is so many of these movie tie-in games or things like that, licensed games, end up just being such trash. And this is actually a good, well-made game from Sunsoft.
Batman Forever? I'm sorry, are you trying to shit on Batman Forever? Is that what you're trying to do right now?
That was not, honestly, it didn't even cross my mind, but great example, Matt.
I mean, whenever you talk about Batman games, like that's the creme de la creme. Fuck the Arkham series.
I mean, you're not wrong, but yeah, there's so many though. Like even back then, you would have the same developer putting out different versions of the same game on different platforms, or things like, or different developers taking on a series. Like the Batman animated series stuff got 6 different versions across Game Gear versus this versus that, and all of those things end up being, I think, there's good and bad to each of them, but this is actually pretty good. And this one I won't spend too much time on, but having the Mister and kind of being able to jump around and check things out, to borrow a term from Frank Cifaldi of the Video Game History Foundation, channel surfing some video games, if you will. I've been also, in addition to having the Batman 89-ish, like, it's that part of the year where I'm like, I want to get into basketball, and I haven't jumped in and watched it yet because I don't even. It's been probably a decade since I tried to watch basketball, but I've just been playing NBA Jam instead. A lot of NBA Jam. Boy, that game's still good, still really good. And I did a sampling of a lot of different basketball games of the era on those old platforms, and you just really, man, NBA Jam just set the bar for a nice balance of like fun, unrealistic shots, but still fun basketball games. I played another one, I forget which one now, but like one where you actually had to hit the shot button, wait for the height of the jump, and then hit it again to release it. And it was fun, but also just being able to stand at half court and just hit the shot button, and sometimes you get lucky, is a fun thing.
I've only ever played Hang Time.
Hang Time?
Yeah, for 64.
Yeah.
Love that one.
Yeah, I want to go back to that. I haven't played that one in a while. Mr. does not currently support N64, so I can't.
NBA Street PS2, man, that was the one.
Dude, NBA Street. I've told this before, but NBA Street was the one that like, all those things you heard in the '90s about kids imitating media and like doing stupid things, but like. That's where we got, you know what I mean? It wasn't the Jackass stuff. It wasn't any of that. It was NBA Street, because we took that stuff back to gym class, man, where we would literally just like, yo, I'm going to go to half court. I want you to charge the net, throw it at the backboard. It's going to fly back to me, and I'm going to do it. And, dude, if we didn't pull that, we totally pulled that stuff off. We did that. I had one guy who, one kid I was friends with was, like, not athletically inclined, but playing NBA Street made him want to get that way. And he got to the point where he could do, just because he was tall, he could do I'm sorry, I'm leaning away from the microphone. I shouldn't do that. I'm not going to pantomime this. He would do the thing where he'd be dribbling, and he got so good at let me take the ball and go over the back of me and under my leg and grab, like, that was all straight out of NBA Street, and he got it. And, like, it was, oh man, I love that, man. It was so much, we had so much fun doing that stuff in real life. And the game just, man, they should bring back NBA Street.
NFL Street, they should do a bunch of them.
NFL Street running on the walls was just like, what are we doing?
That was two.
That was two?
That was two.
I remember that. I remember, like, playing in Philly as, like, Donovan McNabb, just, like, wall running. Like, what are we doing, dude? But, you know, if you can make a Titanfall, you can make an NBA Street.
You sure can.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Matt, you've also been playing some competitive video games this week. Returning to something of your former glory, so to speak.
Yeah, we went the entire 20. I think so. I'm back to my shit on Dota 2. I'm back. I'm back. Like, hours upon hours this week. Shoot. So I think this is what it is. I think it's like I smell TI. Like, it's in the air. I think that was part of it. TI. Like, it's the waft. There's no date for it yet, but I just like the Dota Pro circuit stuff. It's like in full running now. There's been a couple tournaments. They have games just about every day because they have like a regular season going on. I actually don't know all the rules and the point system this time around like I did last TI, but yeah, I've been watching some of that. I've been watching a streamer or two play, and then of course I've been playing, and I slowly got myself in. I played a couple games of Turbo, and I was like, fuck it, let's play real games. I did a couple unranked ones, and then since then, every time I play now, I've just been playing ranked because I don't care anymore. And I played enough games to get my calibration for the season. I am a Herald 3, which is the bottom of the depths, which is quite amazing. So I am in the pit of the worst Dota players, thinking they're good, then getting mad at each other when shit hits the fan. And that right there is worth the price of admission to play Dota, in my opinion. Like, just seeing how a team just crumbles on top of one another and how mad people get. And I just like add fuel to the fire sometimes just because I'm having fun seeing the chat blow up or someone voice chat or whatever. And then like when they like start getting mad at me or whatever, I'm just like, dude, we're fucking Herald 1 through 5. Like, fucking relax. All right.
Yeah. Keep going. Let's practice. We'll get there.
Yeah. I'm not even saying that. It's like, who the fuck cares? We're already at the bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. Yeah. But so some of the things Dota has changed a bit since my last played. Like every player has a courier now. I don't think the side shop. I don't know. I can't remember if it was there when the last time I played, but it's definitely not there anymore. There's a new thing. They took out some of the items and made them neutral items. So when you farm like the neutral creeps in the middle of the jungle, they at certain points in the game they will drop random items, and that is like a group like item. So you put it into like a chest at your base, and then one of your player can pick up that item. And then you kind of like, you have to kind of be strategic on the item you're picking, because if you pick it, another player can't have it. So it makes no sense for me as a support to do like attack speed or damage or anything like that. I should probably get the stuff for like mana regeneration or intelligence, agility, that kind of stuff. So that's that's probably the number one key strategy to it. I don't know how, I can't finger point out what the major change has been with this, but the game lengths have dropped to like 30-40 minutes on average for me. The longest game I played, which was a very back and forth, it didn't feel this long, but it was 60 minutes. So the fact that like I said, it was back and forth like the entire game. There was like momentum swings all over the place, and it was only 60 minutes. That game, I think in the past would have taken me 80 minutes. So yeah, I think the length of the games right now, being that long, has kind of helped me get back into this a little bit more. I think a couple turbo games I've played, some of them ended like 15 minutes. So it's fun to not have to invest a lot of time into a Dota match right now. But yeah, with my hero selection, I just found that I'm probably best as a support, especially right now. I feel like a support, one, you kind of have to know the game very well to be a good support, but it's helping me learn the game at a better rate. I know the joke is, once you hit 500 hours, you learn the game. I'm like 10 hours short of 500 hours now. Granted, a bunch of them was for auto chess back in the day, but I'm at the 500-hour mark, and I still don't know how this game works at times. So, maybe the 600-hour mark, I'll finally learn and be a TI god. But yeah, no, I was kind of falling back in love with the game again. I can't put my finger to why. I played it one night, and it just got us hooked back in me.
Yeah, but that's the thing about a competitive game like that, especially one like Dota that continues to shift and change itself over time, is like you get to a point where, like, I think about fighting games where, like, you can learn the DNA of a fighting game and you can get really good at it, but there's still always like different combinations. Like, even though it is the same thing ostensibly, right? It's still like 3 lanes, go from point A to point B, do the thing. Like, same thing with a fighting game. All it is just make that yellow bar not yellow anymore. Like, that's at the end of the day all it is, but there's still so much nuance to it. There's so many things that can change up or down or left. Like, but it's fun. It's fun to have a sport in that way. You know what I mean? Like a electronic sport in a way.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, like, as I continue to play, especially the support roles, there's more and more things I'm learning or paying attention to, and like I'm just before, like, sometimes I would just click around the map aimlessly because I wouldn't know like what my I could go hit some creeps, but like I'm not supposed to be really farming for gold. That's not what my role is. So like I'm like, as I keep playing, there's less of me just like wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out what to do, and I'm now playing with a purpose. Maybe I'm playing with a purpose for like 25 to 35 minutes, but that's better than like 15 to the 35 minutes. So like I'm just trying to figure out what to do, and like I'm trying to get to like the more advanced stuff of creep stacking and creep pooling and learn the timings of that, because like, if you do that properly, you help as a support, you help your carry, your big guns for the end of the game for those team fights kind of get more experience and more gold faster than the other team. So like, if the better I get at that, like the better off the team is. Also, like, as a support, I know like one of my main jobs is to put vision around the map, and I'm getting a lot better of like learning where to put vision at key parts of the time. So that way I can help my team. So that way, like, if I can get in deep in the enemy's farm, I can turn myself invisible, go into the enemy's farm, put a vision ward there, and then when we see their main like carry just by himself attacking creeps, like, we can go get a gank and halt his progress towards becoming the thing he's trying to be at minute 30 of the game or whatever. So I feel like this time around I'm learning. It's weird. Like, I know I've played it for hundreds of hours, but I feel like this time around I'm learning so much more. And I think it's just because I've finally established like just regular base knowledge. Not, I don't know the game like 100%, but I feel a lot more confident entering a game. And hell, like, even watching a game, I feel a lot more confident, like, what is going on. Like, before I could never spot items being used, but now, like, whenever I see an item being used, like, without having to look at what the character is using, I kind of know what they're using already. So,
I had that last year with skateboarding. Like, I spent so much of my time when I was younger skateboarding, and always, I kind of plateaued at a certain point where I didn't get better, I didn't get worse, but whatever. And then when I stepped on the board last year for the first time and got back into it, like, I don't know, like, nothing. I'm older. I hadn't skated in 10 years almost. And then, but something clicked differently. Like, there's just, I don't know, maybe it's life experience, maybe it's observation, whatever it is, like, things started to make more sense to my feet. And I wonder if you're, seeing that same kind of thing with Dota.
And
how much of creeps and gold and laying down vision spots is going to be integrated into the upcoming Netflix show?
I don't know. This is interesting because when I originally put this article up, it was just a teaser, but then they dropped a like intro. It's not their main trailer, but like another like introduction trailer. It's like a minute and a half, and I was watching it. And I don't play Dota for the lore. Like I know some characters are like related and they have, and I don't know. It gets really weird. But I know there's lore if you want to go out and find it. I think this might be an easy way just to kind of get attached to a couple characters or whatever in a way that you can't just from picking them randomly. But yeah, I watched that trailer. I think I watched it last night, and I kind of like what I saw. I'll probably watch at least the first episode, see what's up. But yeah, I mean, it's an anime. I think the Castlevania one's probably going to be like 10 times better, or is 10 times better, however you want to phrase that. But no, I'll at least check it out and see what's up.
Yeah, it's for those interested, Dota Dragon's Blood hits Netflix, 8-episode series, launching globally on March 25th. We should have Castlevania Season 4 pretty soon, too, by the way, speaking of. There's been like little interviews and things like that suggesting as much. We talked a lot about, speaking of playing games over and over and learning new things about them. I beat the demo for Loop Hero. I shot the Lich and I won. And prior to that, just playing Loop Hero a bunch in the last few weeks has really pushed me to get into some card games. So there's one that I bought a long time ago. It's funny, like, even not drinking, I still make stupid decisions that I would have made had I been up late drinking and done a dumb thing. So this is like one of those moments where I bought a game, don't know why I bought it, don't know what I was thinking. It was really late at night, and I just pulled the trigger on buying it from the App Store. But it's called Night of the Full Moon. So it's on iOS, I assume Android, but I don't know for sure. It's an adventure game where you're given cards, and you have it's presented like a storybook. So it's like a Little Red Riding Hood story where you are trying to go find your grandma. At least in the first storybook, you're trying to find your grandmother, and you need to work your way through the woods. And you kind of come to intersection, and each intersection has 3 things that happen you have to interact with. So it might be a shop, it might be an enemy, it might be a healing station. And as you interact with it, you slowly go through until each page of the chapter has been turned. And I really liked the game. It was, I think, $1 or $5 or something. I don't remember. But it's cool. It's a really cool story game. And card-based game. You're leveling up your cards. You're pulling more things into the deck. I think there's interesting ways that when you fight a werewolf versus when you fight whatever, like the things that would pull in that like change what your deck can do and how it evolves. It's really interesting. So I was digging it a lot and happy that I made that weird, dumb, impulsive purchase at a random time. And I jumped to the App Store to see the listing for it because I wanted to see what else the developer had done. Not that I was done with the game, but I was like, what else have they done? Like, what else can I get from this developer? Because I like it. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Apple in the App Store in the last few months has added a new data privacy transparency thing to every app that you download from the App Store. And they're forcing developers to list out which data is collected on you per app and things like that. And this one was listed as like your precise location is collected and stored. And I was like, why? Like, that's weird. Like, yeah. Nothing else. Like, a lot of the like weird, nefarious in-app purchase-based games, like, yeah, they probably do a lot of that stuff because they're selling to whatever. But I was like, that's weird. I just started looking through them like, huh, I don't know. Like, whatever. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but that's kind of strange. But since I was already in the App Store, I'm like, let me explore other card games. And I ended up finding one called Meteor Fall Crummets Tale, which has a very, like, I don't know, it's borderline Pendleton word art style, but like a little grittier. It kind of, in ways, reminds me of the comic artist Raphael Grandpa, if you're familiar with any of his work. But it's very much that like goblins and that kind of aesthetic to it. But this one had a big old blue check mark, no data collected. And I was like, all right, I'm in. I think it was like $7 or something. So I grabbed it. They have DLC where you can add a new playable character option for like $1. But this one is a little bit different in terms of like the card game itself. Night of the Full Moon, I still think it's cool. So if read through that data privacy stuff and make your own decision. And I think now you can make an educated decision on that. But that one was neat in the way that you would build a deck and you'd have different attacks and things you could do throughout the thing you're interacting with. This one, this Meteorfall Kremit's Tale, it's a grid-based thing. So it's similar to the that Shovel Knight card one that came out, Knight of Cards. It's a tiny bit similar to that, but it's 9 spaces on a grid. Each space might be an item, a power-up, or an enemy. And then you're kind of choosing what you do on the grid. So if you tap an enemy, you fight the enemy, and you can, at will, if you have like equipment cards, whether it's armor or a weapon, you can choose to use them or not use them per attack turn. But you can kind of see, like, is this enemy going to do piercing damage? Are they going to do poison damage? Are they going to block my attack? And you can adjust your approach per thing. And the other neat thing on the grid, at any moment, any of the weapons on the grid, perhaps you don't want to buy the weapon from the grid. Because as you defeat enemies, you get gold to buy the stuff on the grid. You can also take the stuff there and throw them away. And you're sacrificing the item, but you are healing health and you're getting partial money back for throwing away the item. So there's like a risk reward, and it's all about like kind of optimization of the board you're dealing with. And the game itself, each time you clear a board, you're moving around the map to go to a new board. And there's a story that's like unfolding and stuff like that. And you're unlocking new characters along the way there as well. It's cool. There was an original game called Meteorfall. This is the sequel to that. I jumped right into this one because I feel like the mechanics are probably a lot better realized in the sequel and things like that. It's neat if you want something on your phone for a couple bucks that I think is pretty full featured, and they've also got like a daily run option. But I've been kind of just doing it where it's a roguelike kind of style. So like I jump in, I'll do it. When you die, it's back to the beginning and you start from scratch. But I'm slowly like unlocking more cards to the deck to make it easier. These are quick hits. I'm not going to spend too much time on, but I, of course, in the quest for a card game, ended up back at Slay the Spire, which is on Game Pass. Slay the Spire is still really, really good. If you're looking for this type of game, a card-based battle game, Slay the Spire is still a lot of fun, and I've actually made more progress in there now than I ever had before. And I tried out Neoverse. I don't know if you guys have seen Neoverse out there at all, but this is also on Game Pass. I think this game was designed for a computer or a phone in mind, but I was playing on Xbox. But it's all like, you can use the D-pad, but it's still very much cursor-based. I think it would work better on a PC or a phone. I did not actually find it available for phones. But Neoverse, the idea is that you're playing through as one of a few main characters. You sort of unlock new characters in time. But the idea is that you're going through like a multiverse type of thing. So you're playing as like the same character as she appears in the sci-fi world, in the Western world, in the future, in the past. Sometimes she's a Viking, sometimes she's this. But same idea. You're collecting cards. This one has a neat, like, because everything's kind of like cybernetic, you have this overcharge or overheat system where if you play too many cards in a turn, you overheat and you start getting junk cards in your pile. So there's a risk reward in that. I'm looking to make sure. I think those are all the card games I've played this week. But it started with Loop Hero and the excitement there. It led me back to Night of the Full Moon, which is a fun, really fun card game. Which inevitably led me to Slay the Spire, Neoverse, and Meteorfall Kremit's Tale, which Meteorfall I keep coming back to and poking at to see how much further I can get. With that, we're going to move into a break. That was a heavy first half of a show. I don't think we have quite as much, but we still have a little bit to run through in this here back half, which we'll do after this song. Electronic Arts has announced the completion of its acquisition of Codemasters. I feel like when we last spoke of this story, EA was not the front runner for acquiring Codemasters, but I could be misremembering. This acquisition brings the developers behind Formula One, Dirt, Grid, and Project Cars under the same umbrella company that covers developers behind Need for Speed. Matt, how do you feel about EA taking over Codemasters, bringing in the original Game Genies?
I don't think you feel great about EA acquiring any company right now, but, wait and see, I guess. Just hoping they do give Manu some justice and Need for Speed, whatever they want to call it.
Do you think we still get more Formula One stuff? Or I'm sure Formula One's probably going to continue. But
yeah.
Do you think, these folks are still going to be able to make Dirt or Grid, or do they become the new Need for Speed team to fix Need for Speed?
I think they become the new Need for Speed team to fix Need for Speed. Formula One they're going to keep doing. EA's actually are kind of talking about just acquiring the license themselves, for EA as well. But they're going to keep doing the F1 games independently, from what I've read. And I don't think you're gonna see another Dirt game, Grid game, or any of those games, because they're going to be Need for Speed team.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but maybe the other team could go do a new Burnout game.
Maybe. Let's see what they do. That Paradise Remastered, I think, did well for them, so interest is at least renewed. Interest in a new class action lawsuit has arisen this week after a U.S. law firm has filed a class action lawsuit against Sony, alleging that the DualSense controller for PlayStation 5 is defective due to drift. The suit claims that Sony was aware of the problem without disclosing it. Specifically, the suit alleges that Sony has been aware of the problems with drift through online consumer complaints made by consumers directly to Sony, and through Sony's own pre-release testing. Additionally, the suit alleges that the options for controller repair are too limited. Reportedly, the dedicated portal for issues with all PlayStation 5 hardware is experiencing a backlog, causing customers to be redirected to a contact form to reach out to a customer service agent. And then that customer service agent is providing little to no options for troubleshooting or repairing these things, and people are getting thus stuck in some sort of loop. This is ongoing, and there's stuff where you sign, when you click the old checkbox and say, I agree, you kind of blindly agree to not partake in class action lawsuits should one arise. So who knows how all this stuff will shake out in the end. I'm curious, in the wake of this, have you guys ever been part of a class action lawsuits? Did you get anything cool out of it?
Wasn't there one for the PSN outage?
There was, but if you agreed to receive Infamous and Little Big Planet for PSP, you could not partake in that.
I don't think so.
I was a recipient of, I think I got a check for $2 from Sony for the Vita. I never did anything to do this. So if you guys remember the Vita, the idea of, some game creators called it transferring, while other game creators just called it, I don't know, playing on the go or something normal. But the initial commercial for Vita showed a guy in his, kind of like the original Switch commercial, a guy in his living room playing baseball on the TV, playing MLB The Show, and then the guy having to leave to go to work, and he's walking down the street with the Vita in his hand playing the exact same game. And someone filed a class action lawsuit saying that was not accurate to what you were actually doing. Where I feel like I understood that, just that that was not going to work that way, that I was going to be buying a different version of the game and then picking up my save, and I feel like I had understood all the press releases that said exactly that. But I suppose willful ignorance or even unwillful, just not knowing that stuff, it could have been misleading seeing the commercial. Anyway, at some point I got a thing that said, "We believe that you bought a Vita pretty early on and may have been confused by our marketing. Because of this, you are a recipient of the results of a class action lawsuit." And I think either I got, you know what I think it was? I think I got offered the option of a check for $2.10, or I could have like a free game on PSN, and it ended up that like that game was something I'd already gotten for free from the first round of this crap. So I think maybe that's why I opted for the check for $2.10, and then I don't know.
Fun times.
I don't know.
Well, I can report none of my controllers have the issue, at least not right now. Also, iFixit did a fun video on this, and they pretty much said that the DualSense uses the same analog setup or joystick setup that every other controller that has a joystick uses. So this could happen to anyone. I think it's the support part that's the pain in the ass.
Yeah, the support part sucks, and like the same thing happened to me with at least one Xbox One controller. My original Xbox One controller has that left stick
Right, I remember
drift.
that.
And that sucks. The Switch one is the most talked about, I think, in the last few years, which I have not experienced it hardcore the way that some people have, and some people even have that on the Switch Lite. For me, I notice it mostly when I'm playing Ring Fit, depending on where my body is in position to the Switch dock. Sometimes it just doesn't talk the way it should, and that's frustrating. But I also just kind of move my body, and then it's fine. But the Xbox one was nonstop, to the point where I started opening that thing up because I was going to clean it out or something. And Xbox One controllers are actually way more of a pain in the butt to deal with. But backwards compatibility on the Xbox, not as much of a pain to deal with, and in fact getting cooler by the day. Xbox Series S and X are receiving a new feature that the backwards compatibility team at Xbox is calling FPS Boost. With the new feature, games can take advantage of the increased CPU, GPU, and memory of the new consoles, which is doubling and in some cases quadrupling the original frame rate on select titles. Xbox promises that this is only the beginning of the future of enhancements for backwards compatibility. In the spring, the Manage Games section for any title will present you with new compatibility options that allows you to toggle FPS Boost and Auto HDR. Currently, there are 6 titles being supported by this new FPS Boost, including Watch Dogs 2 and Super Lucky's Tale. But many of the upcoming titles that are going to be supported by the functionality are available on Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass. None to be confirmed yet, but it seems like eventually this is the goal for everything. They've been doing any of the backwards compatibility stuff, not any, but a lot of the games have seen like significant improvements. I remember watching a Digital Foundry video that broke down a lot of things, and like weirdly enough, like Final Fantasy 13 is like the best way to play Final Fantasy 13 is on an Xbox One X, or I guess now at this point Series X, via backwards compatibility, because it had pulled in the high fidelity of the Blu-ray. Actually, you should watch it. I'm going to butcher it, but John Linneman broke down everything about that stuff, and like they actually like extrapolated uncompressed versions of the compressed files on the Blu-ray disc for the cutscenes to make them look even better in this. It was wild, the work that actually went into bringing some of these games across, which also explains why some of this stuff is not as like turnkey and easy for them to just like dump out. Like backwards compatibility is a project being upheld by a team. Have you seen any backwards compatibility or enhancements, Matt, in your time with Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance?
I can say for sure that the loading times are real quick. I don't know how they were originally, but whenever I see that little loading in the bottom right-hand corner, I see it for a second, then I'm in the game. So that is fun stuff. And yeah, I actually completed Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and that is a fun goddamn game, and I really, really wish they would revisit this in some fashion, because damn, it's just fun. I texted Mark after I beat it. The ending is just ridiculous. It's one of the best like dumb things
So
in games I think I've ever seen, but it's still a lot of fun. That boss fight's a good challenge. I think like a lot of those boss fights were like a good challenge until you kind of master it and you kind of figure out how to adapt your gameplay to it. I'm sorry, Skyward Sword, but Revengeance beat you to the punch with slashing with the button because it was kind of optional from the start. Like you could do precision strikes, but at like the very end for the last couple boss fights, that became like a real big thing you have to focus on. So I guess another reason why Revengeance should get another go. But yeah, no, like this is it's a must play now at this point for me. Like if you haven't played it, you have to play this game because it is really, really good and platinum at its finest.
Specifically for gameplay, or do you feel like it adds a lot to like Metal Gear as the mythos of it?
I wouldn't say so much for the mythos of Metal Gear. I mean, you get a little bit more of a backstory to Raiden, but the straight up gameplay is cool. Fantastic.
Yeah, I still have it installed on Xbox. I just never wrapped it up. But yeah, that there robot man moving around with his robot life in his robot world with his robot wife. That's Raiden. Yeah,
there's maybe one thing like story related that you just like they keep referring to this SOP, they believe it's the Sons of the Patriots, if I remember that correctly, and it being shut down, which is a thing that happens at the end of 4, but they never really refer to it in a way that they say like Snake shut down, that system. So that might be like one little confusing thing that they like, especially towards the end, they keep bringing up. But the rest of it, one, I think it's overly ridiculous and not needed, but it's there, and two, I don't think it's that big of a deal if you can't necessarily follow the coherentness of a Metal Gear game, because trust me, that happens a lot more than it should.
Mark, you've spent some time this week with a robot of sorts in 30XX, or I don't know if it's a robot. Is it a robot? It's like a Mega Man.
Yeah, they're definitely a robot.
30XX sequel to 20XX.
Yeah, man, and like it lives up to the name sequel for sure in like every aspect. The music was always good. The art was honestly a little questionable at first for me, but
in the
over
sequel,
time,
the original,
in the original, but like once you get past that, it's still like a very good game at its core concept. Like it's basically, if anybody ever wanted the Mega Man X game to be co-op, this is that. And then 30XX just like took that and just super polished everything, and it's just an alpha phase, but it feels pretty far along. Like I'm quite impressed with it. It does have like a roguelike element to it. So the levels are always, you can choose them to be randomly generated.
Mm.
So it's never the same playthrough, and the different just the different equipment you get throughout the levels and everything is also random. So you have different power-ups almost every time, and that can dictate how you go through the game and everything.
Are the power-up types similar to like a Mega Man type? Like, are you getting a saw? Are you getting a leaf shield?
So, yeah, to a point, but it's not via defeating a boss to get them.
Right.
So like there'll be like bonus stages that you can get within the stage to get to an item that you can equip, or there can be a shop and you can buy stuff that way. It's usually the latter, I believe. Because there's two modes of the game, so you can do like the roguelite mode where it's, you have one life and you go through the whole thing, and once you die, you start over. But then they have another mode. I think it's called Mega Mode.
Okay.
Where it saves your progress. It keeps that level layout, and it keeps all your stats and everything that you've acquired, and like all your different techniques and all that stuff. And you can go through it that way, which that's what I've been doing. But it's definitely getting tough, but at the same time, I'm not getting frustrated or like super angry with it. It does suck that there aren't really like checkpoints, and you have to start over every time. And if you opened a chest before, because it saves your progress. So if you open a chest before and got a cool item out of it, that chest is going to be empty all the subsequent times you go back through that. So I guess it helps in a way to know that you don't have to keep going to specific parts of a level to get to a chest, hoping to get something good when it's just not going to be nothing. So you can cut that time out and try to get to the boss quicker. I haven't tried co-op yet, but I can imagine if it was just as good in 20XX, I can only see it being better in the 30XX.
Do you feel like you like this one significantly more? Because you were kind of lukewarm on 20XX, I remember.
At first I was, and then I gave that more time, and then I watched other people play it, and that also got me back into it for like a little bit here and there. I never had like a long playtime with it in my visits, just because of the type of game that it was, where it's just like, all right, one life, you're done, and whatever. And I just wasn't quite into something like that progress-wise
right.
for a game at the time. So it's not really the game's fault. But this definitely added more to it and helped solidify it. And just having more options in general is it's always a plus. The music is, like I said, it's always been good.
Yeah, you sent me that song, and just it's a slapper. I'll tell you what.
And I don't know, just like going through, like the bosses that you have, I think are also random. Like I only had like, you do have like your main little hub that you start out in. You have like these like 9 platforms, as if you're in like the final like Wily's Castle type thing, where you can go to a warp, send you to that world, fight the enemy. But like these are divided by difficulty, and not all 9 of mine were filled. Like the bottom 3 were there, maybe the second row, except for like 1, and then 2 at the very top were just, there's just nothing there. So I don't know if you have to defeat all the other levels first and they unlock,
sure,
or what. If you pick up like duplicate items throughout the thing, so like you can get items that can, there's either like equipable armor and weapons, and then there's techniques you can learn. They're just like your different special abilities, and you can also equip and assign those to different buttons as well. And I think you can have up to like 6 different techniques. The armor depends on the piece, so you can have like a different helmet, a different leg piece, and a different weapon. And the weapons will also help determine what kind of special attacks you can do as well. So like I was like the 0 equivalent in this whole thing, and like his arm is basically a blade. But I remember unlocking like if you start out with just a normal like saber, right? You do a little cut, 3-hit combo thing. And if you hit the Y button, you can shoot out like a shuriken kind of thing, or like a spinning blade, and it comes back to you. Now let's say you find a spear. So now your arm shoots out like a spear. You can do stabbing attacks. That shuriken attack now is you just chucking a spear across the stage.
Cool.
Or if you find a hammer, you can only do vertical attacks, but the Y button throws it like Castlevania Axe style. It just like throws a hammer upward.
Yeah.
So like neat little stuff like that. If you equip different armor, like there's different boots. One can give you like you can hover in any direction, or you can dash in the air, or you can double jump. There's different helmets that also, determine different things. So it's really customizable with the way you can do this. And the augments, which they just call Augs, which is weird because that was a nickname I had for a little bit.
Fitting, yeah.
But for that, those are like your permanent passive upgrades, so you can like increase your health and your energy and your strength, and like, so there's like some slight role playing elements to that, and you can see your stats the whole time as you're going. And I got to a point where like I could double jump. My movement speed was like stacked like 2 times. So like walking was just sprinting basically, and it was great. Platforming everywhere, like just jumping off walls and sliding and dodging. Just everything just felt so solid and nice. I was just still taken away by it. Definitely recommend.
A couple questions about that. Was playing Battle Network what kind of pushed you to jump back into this, or just because this was out this week, right? This early access?
So like I knew it was coming, and so like I already had like a finger on the pulse of that. I think Battle Network. I mean, like, yeah, Loop Hero was the main reason, just because chips are basically cards in that.
Yeah.
But I think this, I'm sure this played a part subconsciously somewhere, and vice versa. I think they, hand in hand with each other, just because it's been a while, like, getting into, like, a Mega Man game, and it's hard to sometimes get back into, like, a Mega Man Zero or a Mega Man X game, just for different reasons, and mostly with like how the levels are laid out, or how like a boss fight is, or how the progression might be. Just don't have the time for it. 30XX finds a good way to trim all that fat and get rid of those stressors, especially with keeping those two options where you just want to go through it once and do like the roguelite mode where it's just a random fresh new take on this level that you enjoy, or do you want to go continue your save progress and go through that way. And yeah, I'm stuck because some bosses are tough, and by the time I get there, my health is like low, and there's no way to like really replenish it. So that gets a little annoying and troublesome. But you still get like currency over time through defeating enemies, so you can use that to buy upgrades, and you just eventually get better to where you can beat them.
How do you guys feel about a game that gives you double jump from the start?
Love it.
Good.
Yeah, I feel like all games should do. Playing around that Batman NES, the Mister has built-in support for Game Genie stuff, and I had hit a point where I was like done. I was about to turn it off, and then I was like, let me look at what the cheats are. Just like, I'm not going to complete the game with cheats on, but I just wanted to screw around with it to see what options were there. And there's one where like it shifts the purples to blacks and grays, so that Batman actually has a black and gray suit instead of a purple. But it's funny because like anything else in the level that should have been purple is now also black and gray. But one of them was double jump, and I was like, huh. And I turned it on, and like, man, that game's so much better with double jump. Like, it breaks the wall jumping because of like how it implements the double jump, I think. But like, it's wild, and I'm just like hearing you talk about the 30XX, like getting a double jump and sliding and movement. Like, I wish more platformer games just gave you that from the start.
Yeah, and if there's anything I guess I could, I don't want to say it's bad, but I can tell when it comes to boss designs, I can tell that its main intention was for two people to tackle these bosses together, as versus the traversing to get to the boss feels more single player-ish. And
yeah,
but that can also work to its advantage, because I think it might have, from what I've seen 20XX, there's kind of like a Shovel Knight aspect to it. Like when Shovel Knight was co-op, you can kind of cheese that where like one person can be at the end of the screen and that would teleport your friend to you or something like that. I think you can do that in 20XX. You could just teleport to somebody and like vice versa. I don't know if that was an ability, but I thought that was pretty cool. And I think, you each have your own cameras. So, because unless you're doing local, does it even have local? Shit, I don't know. But, yeah. So, like, the boss fights seemed... I think that's why I'm having such trouble with it. Also, being the Zero character, I think that just ups your difficulty, because you have to get in close, and that makes you more vulnerable in that regard. I mean, there is some range attacks you can have where, like, I summon lightning, like, it will strike down, and it will hit whoever is in that.
She will strike down. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she will return if it doesn't hit anybody. So I have it in me, and then if I do an attack, it shoots it out horizontally.
That's neat.
Yeah.
It seems like they have a lot of different options for like weapons and upgrades and attacks. Like I love the variety you're describing here. Like that makes it sound way more compelling than just Mega Man's pretty limited, right? Like you get a handful of abilities, and that's kind of beginning and end of it. There's not super. This sounds like there's a lot of options, and you can change the way you want to play depending on.
Yeah, and if you find like extra parts or something that you already have and they don't stack or something, or you just want to get rid of stuff, you can recycle all of that into like that currency, which is like nuts and bolts, basically. You can try to buy new stuff that way too. Mini bosses also drop a certain type of only currency you can get through them, like some weird gem that unlocks more like passive ability type stuff, and yeah, it just keeps going. This is. I was just saying, like, this is what I wanted with the PlayStation 1 Mega Man X games. Like,
oh yeah,
just the variety, especially the co-op part. That part I always dreamed of, and like the only taste we ever got from that was the Mega Man like arcade games.
Dude, I played one of those recently.
Wily Wars or whatever.
Yeah, I beat it because I have the advantage of just dumping quarters into it.
Yeah, I mean, like that, but that's just like a boss rush with a friend. Yeah. Like that's all that is. But to traverse and everything, and like, I could just imagine how cool that would be.
Yeah, it's neat. Would you recommend jumping into 30XX in early access, or should folks go back to 20XX and then?
Nah, I'd say I'm surprised this is early access and not a full release. Like, it feels that solid. Like, if there's anything that's going to be developed, I guess it's going to be like balancing out like items or enemies or something. I don't, or maybe they're adding new stages and enemies still, which I can see happening too. But for an early access game that is in a alpha stage, I am quite impressed with the development of this.
Nice.
Definitely worth it.
30XX. Early access now on Steam. Is it anywhere else besides Steam, or just there for now? Do you know?
I think it might be just Steam for now. But I can see it coming everywhere else because 20XX is on Switch.
Yeah, for sure. I played something that came out everywhere last year, which we've already talked about a bit. Resident Evil 3, the remake. I am not all the way through. I feel like this game got a bad rap early on in its release. I remember like the scuttlebutt very quickly being like, it's not as good as 2. Which is correct. It's not as good as 2 remake. But also I've really enjoyed my time with it. I think Separation helped with that, because like had I jumped into it when it came out, it would have been just a few months after we gave 2 Game of the Year, and I was really thinking about 2 a lot. But now, having just played through 7, and now like I'm really liking this game a lot, albeit much smaller experience. So I am where I last left off. I'm at the lobby of the hospital playing as Carlos, where you have the horde coming in and you have to take everything down. Yeah, I mean, Mark talked about this late last year, I think, a bit. But I don't like Nemesis. He's just annoying to deal with. Like, Mr. X added a sense of, fear and anxiety. And here it's more just like, leave me alone. Like, I just want to go. And Jill kind of expresses that every time he comes back, where she's like, why are you not dead? Like, I did so much to this guy. But it's fun, man. It's fun. There's not as much puzzle solving as there was in 2. Like, there's a lot of things that just are different about this one. This seems more action focused than the previous. But I do kind of like that I'm maybe 4 hours in and I'm close to the end, right? Like, that part's interesting. And I like that there's like a deeper narrative being sewn here. Like, seeing the flip side of what happened the same night as 2, in some cases revisiting some areas you do in 2 is really cool to see, like, what Jill and Carlos to a lesser extent went through during the same time frame. And it's all just kind of coalescing into me, like, getting more into Resident Evil as a franchise. Because by the time I finish this one, I will have played all of them except for, mainline wise, except for Code Veronica 5 and 6. So I don't know where to go next. What do you guys think? 4? Like, replay 4? 5, 6? CVX?
I don't know. It's going to be tough to go back to Code Veronica.
It already was. I tried to play Code Veronica this week, and as soon as I took a step forward, I was like, "Oh boy!" Yeah, and I can get there. It's not. I can do it, but like, I've got to train my brain, and I couldn't balance.
You hated playing 1.
Yeah, one was tough, but
I don't know. I feel like you just finish. If replay 4 if you really want to, then go 5, 6, and just see how ridiculous those games are and move on.
yeah. I do really want to see 5. And 5's co-op, so we could run through that or something, but 6, did you ever play 6, Mark?
Was there a demo for 6?
Yes.
I think that's all I did.
Yeah. Is that one co-op?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fully co-op.
Oh, let's get
All
wet.
4 campaigns fully co-op. Actually, no. Is Ada's co-op?
I thought
She
there was
might
only
not
3.
be.
I don't know.
She might not be. But definitely Chris, Leon, and Wesker's kid.
See, that's the stuff I'm
Kid.
I'm super curious about because Mark had told me he grabbed Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on sale, so I grabbed it also on Xbox. And playing Jill in that game, she's got a big old thing in her chest, and I was like, "What the heck?" And you read the bio of the character in that game, and it's like after disappearing for a while and falling victim to Wesker's experiments, and I'm like, "What happened to Jill? What did they do?" So I don't know where that happens. You don't have to tell me. But I want to see 5 and 6 through. Like at this point, let's do this.
Well, 5's DLC goes more into that as well.
That? Okay.
Yeah, like
That's right. Yeah.
it's mentioned. Like it kind of gets into it in 5, but the DLC is based more on that stuff.
I never played the DLC for 5.
Does Jill's
I never did
name
either.
come up at all in 4?
No.
So she's
I don't
just
think she.
after.
I don't think
I
she
don't know
comes
the
up in
ending
like a
to 3
document.
yet, but I don't know what happens here. But so at 4 we get nothing, and then is 5? Is she also there with Chris in 5?
I mean, that's when you do see her next. So like between like 3 and 5 is there's that, and then you have the Revelations game.
Right. Yeah, and I'm gonna play those too. I know they're not the same, but yeah. Who are the protagonists of 5? Isn't it Chris and Jill or not Jill?
It's Shiva.
Yeah, Sheva. Chris and
Sheva.
Sheva.
Yeah.
Because Chris at this point isn't part of Umbrella. Obviously, he's part of like kind of like his own thing. I forget. I think it's called like BSAA or BCAA or something like that.
Yeah, it's when he converts to that counter-terrorist, but
like biohazard thing.
It's like biological weapon terrorist stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm super into. I'm happy. What was I don't remember the last game that I did this with, but there was something that Halo. That was the one. That their Halo, where like just 20 years of not knowing any of this stuff, and then just fully being immersed in it. So I'm kind of doing that again with Resident Evil to a lesser extent, but still.
I mean, I'm kind of, if we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, I can't wait to see what you think of 6, because 6 is fucking ridiculous.
You've like watched all the way through it?
Oh no, I played 6. I played.
Oh wow.
All 3 main campaigns. I got it through like halfway through Ada's. I saw it all.
I just did I dipped into like the beginning parts of each like little campaign just to get a taste, and that's all I remember.
Yeah.
5 is good though.
Yeah.
It's the last hour of every campaign, and 6 is like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm curious. I'm very slowly chipping through. So we'll see. I was gonna beat 3 last night, and then we ended up just hanging out, so I didn't play anything. But I don't think I have much longer on 3.
No, yeah, you're closing.
You're there.
Yeah. If you are listening and still waiting for another horror game, good news out of Bokeh Game Studio. This is, of course, the new studio that popped up after some departures from Sony Studio Japan. And following the announcement of the studio's beginnings late last year, there's a new video interview with creative director Keiichiro Toyama. The interview highlights Toyama's history with game development as a career, which truly began after 3D games were more common and he'd completed art school. With Bokeh, Toyama believes he will be able to continue to make games in his own style. He says, quote, "I aspire to make IPs that fans can enjoy even 10, 20 years after they're released. The first game from the studio will be a horror game, Toyama describing it as, quote, quite dark, far from my more recent titles." Of course, he's referring to things like Gravity Rush. Toyama also discussed his recent adoration of comic books and the idea of a death game that takes place in a lot of those comic book stories where ordinary people are placed into horrific situations. This gave me immediate triggers in my head of things like 999 or Danganronpa. He believes, the way he said it was like, I believe this will come to life in our game or something like that. So it seems like Bokeh Game Studio is going to be making some sort of Danganronpa World Ends Club, if you will, styled game. Normally, when I read a news story, I cut right to you guys, and I'm like, let me hear your hot takes, but I'm going to roll right into this next piece because we actually have quite a big story to close out the show with here. The weekly Video Games Chronicle news story, which we had a bit of a break from VGC, but now we're getting back. It seems like we're getting into another regular cadence of stories from VGC. Brings us an update from Konami this week. So first, speaking with Bloober Team CEO Piotr Babiano, GI.biz learned that the developer is, quote, has been, quote, working for more than a year on another gaming project, another horror IP, and we're doing this with a very famous gaming publisher. I can't tell you who, I can't tell you what the project is, but I'm pretty sure when people realize what we are working on it, they will be very excited. Speculation, of course, led this to the belief that the developer is working on Silent Hill. Just to rewind a bit to some stories from last year, VGC had reported that Masahiro Ito, Keiichiro Toyama, the aforementioned, and Akira Yamaoka are all working on a new Silent Hill game, which was at the time believed to be backed by PlayStation. The reported soft reboot would be developed in collaboration with Sony's Japan studio and had been in development for about a year at the time of the report in March 2020. The report also backed up claims at the time from an industry insider who stated that Konami was planning 2 Silent Hill titles, a reboot from an unnamed external developer, and an Until Dawn-style game to go alongside with it. The second title was said to be Hideo Kojima's Silent Hills, which sources said was in discussion with PlayStation. He was in discussion with PlayStation to resurrect. In the months since, we've seen more and more games receive Silent Hill content added as DLC or expansions, with more hints around the edges that something Silent Hill is brewing. The report this week claims that VGC understands Konami has outsourced Silent Hill to a prominent Japanese developer, with a reveal due this summer. Further claims state that Supermassive's Dark Pictures anthology are what evolved from the framework of a Silent Hill pitch. So that aforementioned Until Dawn style game, it's believed that Supermassive had pitched something to Konami. It was rejected and then turned into Dark Pictures. This was, of course, believed to be tied to a hesitation from Konami to work with external developers until disappointing performances of both Metal Gear Survive and Contra Rogue Core. After both of those failed to meet expectations, sources say Konami is more willing to contract outside studios for major franchises. And then a footnote at the bottom from the VGC story says that sources claim that in addition to Silent Hill, Konami has plans to work on Castlevania and Metal Gear Solid games via external companies, but any releases of those are still years away. So, my question to the two of you is, which prominent Japanese developer is taking over Silent Hill? And what's the game now? Are we going to get a side scroller from Inti Creates? What are we working with?
I don't know, but someone pitched the idea of From Software working on a Silent Hill game. I kind of fell in love with that. That's like not the answer, of course, but
No, look, I think we know the answer, right? Like, I don't know that it's going to be Bokeh, but it's going to be something like that, right? And it's going to end up being, I think, close to what we expect. But I think more this is the fun part where we can speculate, like, is M2 going to make a top-down shooter? You know what I'm saying? Like, probably not. But yeah, I think if From Software developed Silent Hill, like, that would be just a single connected world. Like, that's a neat
swamp
concept.
Area full of poison.
Yeah. Go back to like the Kingsfield days. Mark, you got any premonitions cooking up over there in the crystal ball?
Not exactly, because like my guess isn't going to make much sense just because of who they are. But like Capcom, like they're kind of like a competitor in a sense because of like Resident Evil and Silent Hill has always been like Coke and Pepsi when it comes to like survival horror. But I just like to imagine Silent Hill with the RE engine. That's basically it. But
who's the Coke and who's the Pepsi?
Good question. I guess I guess Konami's the Coke and Capcom's the Pepsi because of colors.
All right, bold, not bad.
Coke-nami. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a good legit answer for that Japanese company. I'm not too well versed with them, unfortunately.
Do we still think it's too okay? Let's go back to the idea that Bloober Team is working on one of these. What do we think of a potential Bloober Team Silent Hill? Mark, open your eyes. Mark, come back. Did you guys ever finish the Medium? You guys were both playing through that.
I don't.
Never went.
I dropped off that hard. Like maybe I shouldn't take other people's word for it and just finish it myself, but it seems like their take on mental health is very one-dimensional. And it didn't seem too believable for the most part, or it just seemed, I don't know. Bloober with me has always been more missed than hit. Like they do a good job of like kind of like capturing an atmosphere, but then once you're fully going through it, it just feels like it's missing something every single time.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's kind of slowly getting better too at the same time. Like I can't ignore that.
Well, I was going to say, you know how Supermassive pitched and it turned into Dark Anthology? What if the Medium was a pitch that was rejected, and that's why we got two worlds in one?
Dude, I could totally see that. And if you play Dark Pictures Little Hope, that is basically Silent Hill, like watered down. Like that's the name of the town is Little Hope. And you find out like what happened. Like, it has such Silent Hill vibes to it. It's ridiculous. But if this would be the make or break it for me with Bloober. Like if they do a Silent Hill and it actually ends up being like really good, all right, good job. I'm impressed. But if they, I don't know, if it gets botched, I can't do it again. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
my pierogi boys with horror games, but I can't. I can't keep doing it.
So, well, what do we think Bloober's doing then? If we're not thinking it's Silent Hill,
that's a good question too. Yeah, see, I mean, if it's not,
like last I heard about them, their next game was going to involve more combat. So they were looking for stuff like that, and I don't know what that entails.
So another horror IP and a famous gaming publisher. Like that could be anything. Obviously, the speculation is to take it to Silent Hill, but what if it's something like,
I thought Fatal Frame. That's the only gaming franchise I can think that has some resonance with it.
But also think about it like, I think gaming, yeah, but think about outside of gaming horror IP, and what if it's like,
oh wait,
a Halloween game? What if it's a Nightmare on Elm Street? Like, what if it's another horror IP in that way? Maybe they're making the Evil Dead game, and then it happens to be that like 2K is a famous gaming publisher who happens to have a bunch of money, and like it could be something to those lines.
Wait, so Fatal Frame was Koei Tecmo,
right? Which I believe
with also like mixed with Grasshopper.
Grasshopper worked on 4. I don't think Grasshopper was with all of them.
Right.
But,
so I could see Koei Tecmo maybe taking a crack at Silent Hill.
I could see that too. I mean, if you go back to that Famitsu article for the interview with all the devs from like the New Year's, when they were like, "What do you do? What's your theme for 2021?" Like, I wonder if we could pull anything out of that and try and apply it to Silent Hill. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, Fatal Frame came up in that. Like, I think either this year is an anniversary for them, or last year was, and because 2020 was 2020, they missed the anniversary stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
Either that or what's Igarashi's company?
Art Play. Yes.
Yeah, let's either Koei Tecmo or that.
I would be very into an Igarashi produced, developed, or directed Silent Hill 2D platformer. Can we talk about Igarashi for a second? I want to wrap up on Silent Hill, but I've been thinking a lot about Bloodstained lately because I never finished Curse of the Moon 2, which I know was Inti Creates and not Iga, but I went back to Bloodstained. I told you last week when I inevitably started playing Aria of Sorrow, and like the game just feels a little slow. But then I thought about maybe I'll try that 1986 mode they have in it or whatever the heck it's called now. Then I saw that Blasphemous got an update where now you can play as Miriam in Blasphemous, and I was like, do I need to buy Blasphemous? I don't know. Did you guys ever finish Bloodstained or go back to like where? I think that Bloodstained, especially in the wake of Inafune's. Also, where's Inafune? But in the wake of
Inafune?
Mighty Number 9, Bloodstained looked like a godsend. But yeah, I don't know.
I didn't go back to Bloodstained, but I didn't hate what I played.
No, when I played through it the first time, I loved it. But maybe just going back to it, something's weird.
Yeah, because it's hard to play that with a fresh perspective and not compare. You know what I mean? Because even itself is trying to compare in a way. But
yeah,
I don't know if that plays a big part.
I should go back and play through that game. Maybe that's what I should have done. I should play through it as Zangetsu and not as Miriam. I don't know though. Anyway, Silent Hill. Do you think we see that game this year? Like, play it this year? Or do you think it's just announced in the summer and then...
Nah, it's only been in development for just about 2 years now. I don't think so.
Like, there could be some weird teaser, if anything. But
what if there was a teaser and it called it PT and put it exclusively on the PlayStation Store?
So... Hey, do you think there's any validity to that? Because if you recall that VGC stuff talked about Kojima working to get PT back up and running, do you think that is a possibility?
I don't know what that specifically. I know, because wasn't debunked that Kojima wasn't working with Konami or anything like that?
I think at some point, the one thing I remember that we at least talked about here was he was interviewed about the PC release of Death Stranding and said, we just got word that a project fell through and we're pretty bummed about it, but, life goes on. Something to that effect. And I think he had also talked about doing a horror-esque thing as his next project. And I don't know if we talked at the time, I think, about maybe the thing that fell through was not necessarily a game project, but because his studio the production company is meant to be overlooking movies now and other things, that maybe it was a thing they had worked and just didn't. It was something to that, but
yeah. Last I heard with Kojima with making a horror game, he said that he was gonna really push the boundaries with what he did before with it because he's afraid of horror movies. He has a hard time watching them. Yeah. So he said he was gonna watch a lot and actually get through it, and he would document what he's watching and everything on Twitter and stuff.
I remember that because you bought a bunch of the DVDs, right?
Yeah, I bought I bought the Eye.
Yeah,
and
not the Jessica Alba one, but the original one, right? Yeah,
yeah. It's all right.
Yeah,
there's 8 of those movies, but it's all
right. Yeah, we'll see. I think 2021 is going to ultimately be an interesting year for games as we step into the second year, or I guess really first full year of these new consoles. See, as we saw at the beginning with Nintendo Direct news, whatever the heck Nintendo is up to. But I think there's been a lot of silence on a lot of popular franchises for a while that will start to come back. You know what I mean? In a way. I don't think we're going to see a complete return, but I don't know. I think something about last year, at least for me, felt in a way, I moved forward, but in another way, I kind of fell back into some of my roots in a way. I think skateboarding is the most, pronounced version of that idea, but I think even, to my core, there's been a lot of stuff that I feel like I had a shift. And I wonder how much of that is me or all of us as the human collection, and how much of that stuff will end up like changing what things people want to work on or revisit or return to with new experience. Hopefully it's good news. I don't know. Konami's doing that whole restructure right now, so
They got a merch store.
they do, and that too, man. That popped up this week. Yeah,
They have a Goemon merch store.
right. What's going on? Someone cares about something at Konami, which is more than we've seen in 5+ years. So
Dude, that CEO doesn't know that store exists.
they just put it up broke without him.
I think it just opened like last week too, or something like that.
Yeah, they snuck it in during the restructuring. He's busy.
Yeah. No, yeah. Mark sent me that, and the Castlevania stuff looks pretty good. And it seems like they're going to change stock out. I don't think they're going to take anything away necessarily, but keep adding more things weekly is what I read. Yeah, it's cool. Really cool. So we'll see. I would love, because that's the thing, man. Playing that Mister and going back through time. Konami made so many good video games, and it sucks that they don't make they don't make video games anymore. They just don't. And there were, like there's
Hey,
there were kings of the
soccer.
arcade.
Yearly.
Dude, but who's playing that? You're not even playing that. You know what I mean?
I'm saying it's there. I never said I was
but
playing
it's
it.
not, But it's not the heyday of like Sparkster and Contra and all of the cool licensed things. Like so many things that you get to see the Konami logo flash across the screen and get excited about that just don't happen anymore.
Ninja Turtles.
Oh my god, dude. Yes. That's that.
Silent Hill.
Yeah, do the Silent Hill. Well, I think that's a good place as any to wrap it up. Moving into 390 next week. Look at us getting closer and closer to 4 double Zos. Double Zos?
Double
Zos.
Those.
That's the one. If you like this episode and you're counting down to double Zos with us, you can find it and all the rest of them over on thefreecheese.com or just wherever you're listening to this one. There's probably a lot more. You can go to thefreecheese.com, check out some stuff. Follow everybody on Twitter. The Free Cheese is at Some Free Cheese. Matt is at MattyIce131. Mark is at Og_mental. Podcast at thefreecheese.com is an email address. You can email us. Who do you think's making Silent Hill? What do you want them to do with Silent Hill? What would you pay to be a developer on a new Castlevania game? All of these answers and questions more could be sent to podcast at thefreecheese.com. You guys play anything cool this week?
I'm going to continue the climb to greatness for TI.
Yeah, if you're not another rank higher, then I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah, but I will pause. It's the quarterly check-in time for Call of Duty. Season 2 launches, I believe, Tuesday. So we will be checking in, I think, there. Maybe if it's enough change, I will talk about it next week.
Yeah. Mark?
I'll probably still dip between 30XX and 3D World. I'm still enjoying my time with 3D World for now.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on some parts to show up in the mail for my Game Boy Advance so I can continue Battle Network. I haven't forgotten about that. I just refuse to play it right now until I have my Game Boy Advance as a controller for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to wrap up RE3, and then a couple weeks back we talked about the 25th anniversary of Tomb Raider, and I was excited to jump back into Tomb Raider, but figured, let me play RE3 first, because I already spent money on it before I go buying more stuff I won't play. Also, I bet those Tomb Raider games will go on sale, and sure enough, the game I almost spent $30 on was $5. So I grabbed Rise of, Shadow of. I bought a bunch of crap last week. I don't remember, but I know I bought Rise of and Shadow of. So I'm at least going to start Rise this week once I wrap up RE3. That's my next big one. And by start, I mean pick up my save, because I launched it and have a save ready to go in the middle of some ice cavern that I remember stopping at because I was agitated with a side puzzle. But I think, like anything we've talked about this week, going back to it sometimes shows you far more than you saw before. So see the origins of Lara Croft as they were. With that, we are out. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Have a great week. Goodbye.